Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.
Welcome one, welcome all to Sim Speed TV. It's time for the second round here of the Shannons NTE series for 2023, and we're racing under lights at Daytona International Speedway. This is something that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. Always a rarity to see this kind of racing on a combined road and oval course, and in nighttime conditions to boot. Temperatures are going to be different, conditions will be different, the way the cars handle will be slightly altered as well, thanks to the conditions they are racing in. We'll be having Hayden joining us very soon, but for now, it's me, Reese Gardner, in the commentary box with you, Daniel Leet alongside me, and Jay Kennedy, of course, handling production behind the scenes. G'day, Daniel. This is going to be a fun night of racing. Plenty of overtaking opportunities around this course.
Yeah, go Reese and all the viewers tuning in. Really looking forward to seeing how these cars, both in the V8s that we'll see later on tonight and the GT86s go around here at Daytona. It's a very unique layout, as you say, high speed around the banking. Then you've got this high technical infield section, but the draft here is going to be absolutely key, especially coming down to the final lap and seeing a dart across the line to take the win tonight.
Yeah, indeed. Let's look at the geographical location of the circuit. Not too far from the birthplace of NASCAR, the Daytona Beach course. Of course, this speedway was built in the late 1950s to
And I think we may have just lost Reese there, but just to touch on Reese's comments, it's a fantastic little circuit. It's 5.7 kilometers in length. We've got 12 turns for all of the drivers to navigate. As we saw down into turn one, it's going to be very tough and tricky for these guys to get the momentum right that they're going to need to make their way through and clear up a couple of passes. The next big one is down into the International Horseshoe and down through turn 5. Going to be critical to seeing a couple of overtaking opportunities before you start the long run up through turn 6, up onto the high banks of NASCAR turn 2 and 3 and down towards turns 8, 9 and 10 of the bus stop chicane, leading you then back onto the main straight. It'll be really interesting to see how the guys handle it and get themselves underway. Have a quick look at our V8 standings after round 1. Blake Warboys taking out the winners we saw last week. Had a David Coleman in a hardly fought battle, first and second, and Justin McLean coming in third. That late race safety car really spicing up the way that we saw that one unfold in the GTs. don't have the overlay for it here tonight. However, we saw Jack Gray take a massive commanding lead in race 1. Cameron Edwards came in alongside him in second position, and then Ross Talon rounding out the grid. Tonight, as you can see up on screen, we've got 15 minutes of practice before heading into 15 minutes of qualifying for the guys tonight, and then a 20-minute shootout race. No safety cars for these guys. Pit stops not necessarily going to need to happen, but we'll keep an eye on that to work out how it all unfolds. But it's going to be interesting to see what these guys are able to do coming in under the lights of Daytona.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Sorry about that little technical glitch, guys. I am back, and yeah, now we see the 86s making their way around here. Hayden, this is something that's definitely going to work out with some interesting slipstream battles here in these slower cars. Obviously, the slipstream's going to have quite the effect in the V8s coming up later, but man, we are going to see some big pack racing in these things. Okay, we don't seem to have Hayden at the moment, but we'll get to him soon. What are you thinking, Daniel? This is going to be a straight-up sprint for the most part, but there's going to be some quite close racing here coming onto the oval sections.
Yeah, racing is going to be really tough here tonight. It's going to be, as you say, a lot of door-to-door action. The draft is going to be absolutely critical to getting the most around here. As we duck back to a quick little replay, as you see the guys now working their way in towards turn 1. This is Cam Edwards we're focusing on here. And Reese, a good look at just how tricky it is for these guys to get the car slowed up, just pinching the grass on the inside of the pit exit there. And fortunately, was able to keep that car off the wall. That'll be a scary thing if that happens in tonight's race.
Yeah, the 86 already a very tail-happy car, and especially under brakes. So the first turn here at the Daytona Road Course, I've been through there hundreds upon hundreds of times, having done a couple of Daytona 24s in the past, and there's no such thing as the optimal line through that corner. There's multiple lines through there, and they all work out exactly the same. So really the main thing you got to focus on for that corner is making sure that the car doesn't oversteer on the way in. A nice stable rear end, meanwhile making sure that the front end grips up nicely is what you'll be focusing on. Tyrone Anderson currently top of the timesheets at the moment. Let's see what the Northern Territory driver will be able to do coming onto the tri-oval, and you'll see drivers hugging the inside through the oval section, then moving up here to just straighten out the braking zone for this first corner here. And he keeps the rear end reasonably stable for an 86 at least. And it's a clean run out of the corner as well.
Yeah, it was interesting just to see the amount of wheel work that he had to put into that car just to keep it on the braking line and turn it in off camber there as you rotate through one. That was a pretty sketchy move for him.
It almost looks like he's got the old Vaseline on the camera trick there. That's a bit of 80s stuff going on. But yeah, he was definitely fighting it pretty hard. And my problem seemed to be solved, guys, and I'm here.
Nice. Welcome, Hayden. Good to have you in the box with us once again. Looking at Michael Latta at the moment here, 7th in qualifying at the moment, and 2.6 second gap to the front. I have to say, if you're running behind someone, then you'll be best placed, because there's so many long full throttle sections around this place. You need the slipstream to get a good time in.
You certainly do. I mean, as we saw down through one, it's massively critical, but the big one is coming up right through here, getting out of turn 6 with good momentum and good flow in the car there. You've got to try and get the power down nice and early to set yourself up for the big run along NASCAR 2 and 3, which if you can get a drafting buddy to come along here with it, definitely see you in a good position down in towards the bus stop. But the tricky thing will be for the guys that are sitting in that second position, how early do we think we're going to see them maybe lift off, try and maintain the momentum through the bus stop to slingshot out on the return out towards the start-finish line?
That's an interesting choice of attire there, Tyrone Anderson, by the way. I don't think you're going to hear anything through that headset. But yeah, very good point there, Daniel. It's all about the run through the bus stop. Go on, Hayden.
He's fixed the Vaseline, but now he's got a helmet on, so he doesn't want a big stain. He's trying to keep his cards close to his chest, which drives me exactly right. So the slipstream here at Daytona, and especially in the 86s, like these are not high-powered cars, so that run onto the back straight vital, the run through the chicane vital, trying to tuck in and having a teammate like so many of these guys in Series 2, and just a little bit of planning between the guys to use that flying back life track yours and be in a good position to be max speed as much as lap as possible.
Let's see what Ladder can do here. 2:13 again there on the timesheets, actually falling down the order a little bit, and oh, that's going to be difficult for him to cover there. Just losing the rear end on the way into turn 1, which we're going to be seeing quite a bit of tonight. We've seen plenty already. Have a look at this. We've got Clay Richards in the session with us, series ambassador, and sponsored, of course, by Shannons, son of Stephen Richards, grandson of Jim Richards. Really awesome to see him here in the sim, cutting some laps and looking incredibly quick to boot. A 2:09.7. That's a bit insane.
Yeah, he's I mean, we didn't see him at Sandown. He's come into the series for round 2 here at Daytona, but just looking at the sector times that he's been able to put together for that 2:09, he is miles quicker than anyone through the middle sector of this lap, which is key, getting through the infield up onto the bank there. So he's got a lot of momentum in this car, and I think it's going to serve him quite well, which hopefully for us, after what we saw at Sandown last time out, might mean we're going to have a really good race to the checker between maybe himself and Jack Gray.
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping that's going to be the case, and it looks like he's approaching the start-finish line at the moment, so we'll be getting another time on the board very shortly. No slipstream for Clay Richards, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of pace he'll be able to pull out here. And unwinding the steering a little bit earlier, coming on to the final stretch, coming into the tri-oval. 2:09.7, the time to beat, but yeah, it looks like he backed off a little bit on that one. But Dylan Seitz in second place at the moment, setting that time recently, and Pete slipstream of Clay Richards. So we'll see if he can gain that 1.2, 1.3 seconds needed to get himself provisional pole position. Here comes Cam Edwards to the line, and it looks like it's going to be a 2:11 here, 2:11.7, and fourth place at the moment for Cam. He was not able to match his current fastest time there.
Yeah, a little bit of work to do, but I mean, we saw Cam Edwards have a very strong race in Sandown there, and look to see him do much the same again. Just a little bit of a wiggle there as he works the car down into turn 5, and chasing after Clay there, trying to pick up that draft, maybe see if he can get himself a little further up the lap time or the leaderboard and maybe narrow that gap. But interestingly, looking at the top speeds here, Reese, we're seeing about a 5 to 6 kilometre an hour difference for the cars in that slipstream. So if you maybe 2 or 3 deep in a train, possibility to get a big lunge here.
Yeah, that's what a lot of drivers will be counting on. I think for the majority of this race, the one position you don't want to be in is the race lead, because you are not going to be getting any slipstream assistance from drivers in front of you. I'm not too clear on the rules surrounding bump drafting in NTESeries, but that could be an option if it is allowed. And we see that Seitz has all run a bit deep there in the bus stop. He might have picked up the dreaded off-track 1X thanks to that. The bus stop at Daytona is often a place that brings a lot of misery to drivers. Let's see then what we can do here coming onto the start-finish straight, Hayden.
And I think the reason it is quite sensitive, that penalty point, is the advantage is huge for getting a good run onto this bit of tarmac. So the iRacing have obviously made it so you just can't cut it too fine, because the advantage that you get from cutting that narrow would just be huge. So it's interesting to see being on board this site there and how he's handling himself. But he seems quite composed. He seems to be smiling and having a good time with it, and chasing after a son of a Bathurst winner and the grandson of a Bathurst winner all at the same time. It's a cool thing about ESeries racing. You know, all walks of life, all backgrounds. We're all here in our sims and we're all having a great time.
Yeah, that's the main thing, really. That's why sim racing started in the first place. You know, not just because of the software, obviously, but the community spirit that has come up around these racing simulators, starting all the way back in the late 1990s. John Van Ree says hello as he makes his way onto the oval section of the lap. Van Ree currently the back end of the top 10 at the moment. Not too bad of a position to be, but he has quite a bit of time to make up if he wants to overcome Michael Latta there in 9th place. That's about a 1.3 second gap that he has to try and make up. And he might be a little bit too far back for the slipstream to be doing anything for him at the moment. Most of the time in iRacing, if you are about 1.5 seconds back from the car in front, that's when you start getting the draft effects. And if you are within a second of the car in front, that's when the slipstream is at its strongest. Checkered flag in the session, and it looks like Van Ree's decided to call it a session there in qualifying.
He's doing some lawn mowing there. He's got a bit of Forrest Gump action happening there. He's just pulled into the midfield, and Dylan Seitz looks like he's going to be finishing his lap here, and 2:11.029 is a solid lap. So he's only, he's a few tenths up on third, but to be 1.3 seconds behind Clay Richards, Richards is definitely a full package here, isn't he?
Yeah, he's put down some incredible times there in car 44. Seitz decides that lap is not worth finishing, and away he'll go. Let's see what Brad Minshall can do. Currently 7th place. We've got about 2 minutes and 20 seconds left before the session ticks over to race. The clock has officially hit 0 in qualifying, so drivers aren't able to start another lap, but iRacing gives you a grace period to finish the lap that you're currently on. So Minshall out of the NASCAR 4 turn, sticks to the inside as much as he can. And it looks like this is going to be 2:12 or thereabouts. Yeah, just about. I was only a couple of hundredths off.
Yeah, it was a pretty decent lap to close that one. And he did manage to pick up an extra spot too and bump himself up into 6th position. So knocking on the door of the top 5 there in qualifying, as we see Michael Gore, the Filthy Mo, coming across the line. His best at the moment, a 2:14.87. Sees him currently down in 13th position in the starting order, and a little bit of work for him to do, guys, if he wants to try and make it up in towards that top 10.
I don't think that this lap's going to be one that he finishes. There we go. He's pulling into the pits there. So I think actually, if anything, Gore is one of the best placed drivers here, because unless there's an incident in the midfield coming through the first corner, he's going to have the benefit of slipstream of all cars in front of him. That's going to be huge coming into this race, which starts thus. Clay Richards takes pole position. He starts alongside Dylan Seitz on the front row. Tyrone Anderson and Cameron Edwards on row 2, with Ross Thalen and Brad Minshall rounding out the top 6. In 7th place, we got Snow Cotter with Jack Gray starting alongside him. Matthew McMillan and James Zeitz, no relation to Dylan Seitz with an S, rounding out the top 10. Michael Latta and John Van Ree, 11th and 12th. And then we have Michael Gore and David Worrell, the last 2 drivers to set times. We have Shane Newens, Tim Nicol, and Neil Woodburn also in the session here. Not setting times in qualifying. Hopefully they will take to the grid. We got race control and safety car in this as well. If there's a big enough incident out on track and drivers have to request a tow back to the pits, then the safety car will come out. But only a 20-minute race in 86s, Hayden, shouldn't be too much of an issue.
No, we shouldn't really see too much of that, but you did raise an interesting point there. So you mentioned that Gore's in a good position if there's not a midfield incident on the first corner of the first lap. Being around iRacing and sim racing for a while, we all know that there's a pretty good chance something might go down, especially going into a pretty tight radius turn 1 here. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see. Staying out of trouble at Daytona when, just a little bit of a loss of speed at any point can cost you a whole lot of time at the end of the track is going to be absolutely critical.
Yeah, that it will. And also noting, Daniel, it's going to be a standing start here. They are starting on the banking in the tri-oval. They're going to have to be careful that the cars don't veer to the left when they get off the line.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky one for him to get away. I mean, the cars, as you say, are on quite a substantial lean in towards the infield area there. So getting the power down and away is going to be absolutely critical for that. And we're going to see that later on too with the guys moving into the V8s as well. That's going to be another tricky one for us to keep our eye on. But up towards the pointy end of the field, it's going to be an interesting one. Hopefully, as Hayden was saying, we don't get the big one, much like we saw at Sandown 3 weeks ago for round one. We saw all the chaos in the midfield. Let's see if the guys can get these cars through clean and safe.
Top 2 grid spots still haven't been filled yet, and it looks like there's been a technical problem for Clay Richards. His connection to the server has dropped, so our pole sitter will not be taking the start here. That is devastating for Clay Richards. Hopefully he'll be able to get back into the server and we'll be able to at least set some laps and get classified, but not looking optimistic from here. Only 10 seconds left, and so that means Dylan Seitz is going to be your effective pole sitter here for round 2 of the Shannons NTESERIES Dev Series here in the Toyota GR86 Cup cars. The revs start to rise, and we get ready for our standing start. And the green flag flies. We are away. Dylan Seitz did not get off the line very well, but he maintains the lead by half a car length. Tyrone Anderson getting a much better jump there as they make their way down to turn 1 for the first time. Already 3 wide between Thalon, Minchell and Gray, who will come out of this in front. Gray with the wide line on the way in tries to overcome it, but Thalon sneaks by on the inside. Minchell has to fall back there. 2 wide between Matthew McMillan and Snow Cotter on the way into the first of our hairpins. Nice wide entry to this one, but got to be careful in these very cold conditions. So Seitz, in the midst of all of that, has lost the lead. Tyrone Anderson now in P1, Daniel.
Yeah, great jump from all the cars there. We didn't see too much wheel spin from everyone getting off the line there. Tyrone Anderson, as you say, now up at the sharp end of the field. He's going to take everyone up onto the banking for the first
he's wide,
time
though.
in the race. And I think he may have just held that position, but he's coming under a lot of pressure here from Dylan Seitz, and Seitz just narrowly sticks the nose back up the inside into turn 6.
Yeah, that's Anderson on the inside there. Seitz managing to get the lead back thanks to that small mistake from Tyrone Anderson, but now, Hayden, the draft comes in. Let's see how much these guys close up.
Yeah, this is where we get a bit of single file, Indian file, I think we used to call it at footy training. The guy at the back will try to make moves on the guy at the front, everybody be closing them right in, and it gets some really interesting racing, especially heading into the chicane. It's very trafficky, you're travelling fast, you're under aero loads and all sorts. Trying to pull this up and squeeze through a very thin gap is looking a bit argy-bargy already.
Yeah, Tyrone Anderson takes the lead back coming into the bus stop, but ran a tiny bit deep, which compromised his exit, and that means that the top 6 are now in on line here. There might be just a whisper of slipstream for Jack Gray behind Ross Thalon there in 4th, but it looks like this is where the race is here in the top 3. Here comes Edwards. Is he going to be able to try and get this done? No, he's going to give a bump to Tyrone Anderson, and here comes Ross Thalon across the line to complete lap 1, and the top 4 are separated by a fraction of a second. This is fantastic. This is exactly what we expected, and now there's a run starting to emerge from Gray and Minchell behind. Who's going to make it out of turn 1 here? Edwards spins, and Anderson goes off as well.
And Gray's in the wall too, just for contact there also. That was a great run into one, bit of bump and run from everyone, unfortunately for Jack Gray. He has been caught up in that one, drops down to the back of the field, and some substantial damage on the nose of that GT86.
That was awfully brave from those guys. No one was given a mill there. There's quite a few more laps to go. It might have been a bit too game these early on, but obviously everybody is out here to make a good impression in this first race and get their head right for what's coming in the two cars as well.
Yeah, well, let's have another view of what happened in turn 1. So just mistakes there for Edwards and for Anderson as well, and just sneaking through there. Oh yeah, that's what happened to Jack Gray there. A little bit of avoiding action. I think that was by Sights, and unfortunately, that means that Sights has fallen back to third. That means Ross Thalen is now in the lead of this race by only half a second from Brad Minshall. This is looking good for the two up the front, but Dylan Sights will be on the fight back. He's going to have to deal with James Zeitz first, though, Daniel. Who's going to come out of the chicane in front here?
Well, looking at the way they're running, you're going to see Sights try and stick one up the inside there. I think it's probably a little bit early to do, and as we were saying in the practice and qualifying sessions, realistic, you need to think about the momentum. And at the moment, a lot of this for these guys, and as we said, 20 minutes to go, is a lot of sizing up those competitors to work out where you can get the run. As you see Mitchell just getting a little bit of a touch up there from, I think that was Ross Thalen just giving a little touch up on the way through. Zeitz now moves into contention as well, trying to bump draft his way up into the lead.
Yeah, that was a change for position between Sights and Zeitz. So James moves up and then gives a big bump to Minshall down the front straight. And here comes the run from Dylan Sights. He's up on the outside now, coming across here. Minshall will be a little bit stressed at the moment as Sights, very late on the brakes, gets back into the race lead and just manages to hook up the turn in for the first corner. Back into the lead now for car number 21.
Well done by Sights there. That was a pretty brave move, pretty brave, but he stuck it out there. He made it work. He had to nail the braking point, and he really, really got the job done. So it's you could just see the pure concentration on the inboard there. These guys are fully onto this. It's great racing we've got going on here.
Yeah, it's looking very good, isn't it? As we're on board here with Dylan Sights, and on the Zoom feed at least. He's really going deep on the brakes, isn't he? But he's managing to pull it up for the corners. Of course, the anti-lock brakes on these GR86s will help him somewhat there, but he has run a little bit deep. That gives half a chance to Thalen, and can he do the crisscross coming onto the oval? No, actually, his advance is blocked there by Sights, keeping it nice and tight. Onto the banking again, and Minshall still looking to make some gains here in third at the moment. Remember, Minshall started in 6th, and James Zeitz in car 65 started in 10th. They are now 2nd and 4th. 2nd and 5th, sorry. So some good gains being made here, particularly thanks to the incident in turn 1. There's the lead lost again for Dylan Sights. Ross Thalen getting a big bump there from Brad Minshall. Those two running same liveried car, so a little bit of teamwork going on there as Thalen gets up into the lead coming through the bus stop. But I tell you what, all of this passing means that no one is able to get a gap on anyone behind. This means that there's going to be a big pack here coming towards the end, as long as there isn't a problem.
And it's something we haven't seen too much of it, because, you know, with the drafting, it really brings everybody back into play. So long as no one really breaks free, or no pair really breaks free, we're just going to keep seeing, like, nice, tight, competitive racing like this, eh, Daniel?
Well, we will as we go four wide now.
No! Thalen making contact there, Snow Cotter, and that has created a massive smash. Vaulting over Airborne is Ross Thalen, and James Zeitz was caught up in that one as well. I see that coming from a mile away. Someone tries to get up the inside on the apron, and just a slight bit of side-by-side contact has resulted in a couple of races being ruined, and the problems continue for Snow Cotter, who's having trouble keeping that car under control. Brad Minshall into the lead then. Dylan Sights still in 2nd. Michael Latter was involved in an incident there as well, I think spinning on his own on the way into turn 1.
Yeah, that put him well down the pecking order there. As we go back up towards the front, Sights and Mitchell still going hammer and tong down in towards turn 6 at the moment. McMillan's not too far off the back of this train to bring it into 3 contending battles. But as we have a look at the 2 on boards here for the guys, you can just see the intensity is the eyes as they work their way up onto the hairpin.
Replay then of what happened. So Justin Cotter trying to get up the inside of Ross Thalen here. The momentum was with it, but yeah, just no room there on the inside as they went 3 wide up ahead.
Yeah, that wasn't going to happen, was it? And he's also sort of give him a bit It was a bit out of control and gave him a bit of an extra one, and that's where we've seen that real acrobatic vaulting, Olympic level stuff from the 86, but not what you want to see.
Oh, and the contact for the lead there. Seitz and Minchell come together. And Minchell manages to avoid the tyre bundles, but he spins. Oh, no. So this race has gone rapidly downhill for quite a few drivers. Minchell tried to go up the inside, and Seitz turned in.
Yeah, it's written all over their faces.
What do you make of that, Daniel?
Well, it's a tough one, right? We've seen a few guys already tonight trying to go too wide through the bus stop there, and with the lack of downforce that these cars have, the lack of grip as well, when you see them get that little bit of a wiggle in, it doesn't take much for him to be unsettled. And unfortunately for Minchell there, he got turned around, and that's pretty much most of his race done. We'll see whether he can claw it back though with 10 minutes on the clock, but as we jump to another replay, we'll have another look at what all transpired.
Yeah, this looks. Okay, that was a little bit further forward. Here's what happened to James Seitz here with that big incident between Ross Thalen and Justin Cotter. So Seitz moves to the outside, but unfortunately that's probably the worst place to be, because this incident happens in front of him. You can see he was trying to take avoiding action for the incident, I think, but then Thalen was just hit up into him and there was nothing he could do there. No time to react whatsoever. Amazingly, as we take another look here at Seitz versus Minchell, yeah, Minchell pulls out and brakes late, but Seitz just goes right into him there, turning in for the apex like the other car wasn't there.
Yeah, I'm surprised that one transpired the way that it did, because I mean, you know that a guy is going to send one up the inside, especially with a run like that, and with 10 minutes left on the clock. Do you need to fight that hard for it that early on?
Not at this circuit, and he made it really obvious too. Like, he really showed him what he was going to do. So it looks like we might be having a bit of a look at that in race control.
Yeah, no surprise to see that we've had our first penalty assigned to Justin Cotter for causing that incident, that spectacular incident we saw coming through the tri-oval. And yeah, race control reviewing that incident at the bus stop. Amazingly, we haven't given any attention to them, but Cameron Edwards and Matthew McMillan moving through back into the podium positions after that incident. And here's Dylan Seitz trying to get back into second past Edwards for the race lead. Incredibly, Seitz has still managed to hold on to a top position in spite of everything that's transpired in this race so far. 8.5 minutes left on the clock, and Edwards protects the inside into the first turn. Seitz has to just be very ginger on the brakes and turn in to avoid that. Snow Cotter comes into service penalty as Edwards spins once more. And it seems that turn one is not Cameron Edwards' friend tonight.
Yeah, he's done well to get himself back into the game there, but Seitz he's definitely on tonight, isn't he? He's playing some really, really good braking manoeuvres, and he's really pulling off some brave overtakes and just chucking it in and having a red hot crack. But it's tricky. It's going to be interesting to see what comes of the review. So it looks like we do have something for Snow Cotter here. Yeah,
overtaking off track. He went to the apron in the tri-oval to try and get past Ross Thalen. Now, usually in official iRacing sessions, you are allowed to use the apron and the tri-oval as the racing surface, but NTESeries administration views that a little bit differently and have brought in some house rules for that section of the track. Not allowed to go to the apron to try and get past someone at the start-finish line. This three-way battle is now eventuated here between Edwards, Newens, and Gray. Jack Gray, of course, last time we saw him, he was spun, and we're hearing of a penalty incoming. And looking at the car that's on screen at the moment, I can imagine who it's for. Pit lane drive-through penalty for our leader, Dylan Seitz, for that contact with Brad Minchell. Daniel, that's pretty big.
That's a big one, and it sets a precedent for later on when we go to the V8s as well. So the guys are going to have to be cautious with their moves, get them done clean and concise. Otherwise, you're going to expect to trip down the slow lane tonight, unfortunately.
Well, that means that this is going to become the battle for second rather than the battle for third as it is at the moment. Edwards, after his spin, falling back into the clutches of Newens and Gray. As I was saying last time we saw Jack Gray, he was one of the drivers that spun off in turn 1 on lap 1. Sights wastes no time coming into the pit lane service penalty, and through goes Shane Newens on Cameron Edwards. We've got a replay coming for an incident that's under review. John Van Ree, apparently, car in question here. Coming on to, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I can see why that would be under review. Looking at it from that angle, it seems like Van Ree moved down. And, oh, it's all gone off here in the battle for second. Once again, Jack Gray having some trouble keeping that car straight, and he has to back off the racing line to allow other drivers through. Dylan Sights, amazingly, has, despite serving that penalty, come out in 5th place, Hayden. So it's not over yet. We've still got 5.5 minutes left in this race, and the amount of incidents we've seen, it's not outside the realms of possibility that we could see Sights back in the lead.
Definitely not out of the realm possibility, and you're looking at Mitchell and Sights together again. So there's a bit of love lost here. So this is going to be interesting to see how he does it. We're coming up to exactly what caused that drive-through penalty on the circuit. Sights has a really good run here. Looks like he's got some pretty good pace on Mitchell, and he's actually got some good pace on the whole field. Like, Sights is definitely quite quick tonight. McMillan will just be trying to keep things straight for the next 5 minutes, but for Sights, he's going to want to get this done clean, and he's going to want to make a statement with it as well.
Yeah, well, it looks like not much slipstream on the way in. Oh, no, actually, quite a bit. Sorry, looking at the wrong cars on my end. Here he comes around the outside, and Minchell just says, okay, you can have that one. I'm going to brake early and stick in the slipstream along the second part of the flat-out section of this circuit. Newens versus Edwards again for second place. 4 minutes and change remaining on the clock. This means that there's probably going to be 2 more laps from here as McMillan crosses the line. Will Edwards be able to hold on here, Daniel, because he's already had a couple of off-track excursions?
It's going to be tough for him to do. He's got to just get the car slowed in a nice straight line, and that's been one of the Achilles heels for the GT86. Is, as we saw at Sandown, it's very tail happy on braking and deceleration as well as acceleration out of the corners. So looks like he managed to get that one through nice and clean, but I am keeping a weather eye on this battle between Sights and Minchell. And as we went across the line after we saw Minchell give it up in the bus stop, he managed to pull it back with the draft and cross the nose just in front as they made it over the stripe that time by. So maybe a little pre-dress rehearsal for what's likely to come in 2 laps time.
Indeed. We've had another penalty come through here for Tyrone Anderson. It actually looks like Anderson was the car deemed at fault for the incident with John Van Ree coming out of NASCAR 4 for passing below the white line, or the double yellow line in this case at Daytona. Battle for second heats up again here. Edwards up the inside of Newens coming onto the oval.
And it's interesting not seeing these guys trying to work together to get back up to first. They have gained some ground on McMillan, but I was almost expecting to see a bit of bump craft and a bit of really working together to reel that gap in. I think it's fair to say that first place is out of reach for these boys now, so it's just going to be full send to the finish line.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's going to be much chance of them catching Matthew McMillan unless he has a crash at this point. So second and fourth, the battle's on track. There's also a fight for seventh between Gray and Latter. Those are your fights on the circuit at the moment. So with 2 minutes and 10 remaining on the clock, Matthew McMillan just coming out of NASCAR 4. So looks like this is going to be the final lap here. White flag for car number 22. And there's the battle for second. There's the battle for fourth. It is still on for the top 5 here. Newlands versus Edwards, no dice for the moment, but have a look at this between Minchell and Sides. Minchell on the outside coming into turn 1, slightly straighter braking on the outside line, and he manages to keep it, but undoubtedly this is going to mean that Sites has the advantage coming onto the oval. From that point, I suppose, Daniel, what Minchell will have to hope for is that he can catch enough of a slipstream out of the bus stop to draft back past him.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that we saw Minchell just throw it down into 1 there and take that spot away from Sites. I thought he would have just lifted a little early, dropped back into line. He now knows in 2 occasions he's got the pace to get back around him out of the bus stop there with the slipstream. I'm wondering if maybe he's missed a trick here in trying to take over the spot this early on.
Totally agree. I think he's a bit early with that. I think he's trying to make a statement, but he had all the cards in his pocket. He was past him by the line two laps in a row, so I think he might be onto something there.
We'll have a look at this. This is interesting. See in the background there, Minchell giving the position back to Sites, coming over the oval. So a little bit of tactics here for Brad, and the battle for seconds still on here. Edwards slots in behind Newlands. Who's going to finish second? Who's going to finish fourth? That is the big question, but no question for Matthew McMillan. It seems that he has got this race wrapped up from here as Newlands protects the inside from Edwards. Sites up the inside of Minchell coming out of the bus stop, but now the cars in second and fourth are both sitting ducks. This is going to be a great finish here for the top 5 in the Dev Series here, part of the Shannons NTE Series for 2023. And it looks like Edwards might have pulled out a little bit early here on Newlands, but he does have the momentum. Up ahead, Matthew McMillan is going to take victory in car 22. Fantastic drive. Edwards is going to move into second just before the line. Very interesting finish here. It's going to be decided by a bumper between Edwards and Newlands. Meanwhile, for fourth place, Brad Minchell gets the run on Dylan Sites and manages to nab fourth place by just a couple hundredths of a second. Latter versus Gray as well. Can Gray get anything back here before the line? No, he can't.
Well, what a cracking finish to that race between Minchell and Sites. I was watching that one as they come across the line. Sites went out to the outside to try and block that run, and Minchell just stuck it back down the inside and just pulled the nose across the line there. Unbelievable.
Well, look at the gap between Edwards and Newlands. 100th. Oh, that's brilliant. Fantastic stuff. And 0.017 between Minchell and Sites at the end. Like you guys said, absolutely cracking finish there. And, well, Hayden, have a look at James Zeitz here. He was one of the drivers who could have been up there were it not for incidents. And it turns out he is going to be one of the last cars to come across the line here.
And we spoke about it, you know, this is the love of sim racing, that if you can stay out of trouble, you can go a really long way. We just saw someone who ultimately had a drive-through penalty still finish within, I think, 10 seconds of the lead. So, you know, if you can stay out of trouble, you can go a really long way. But if you get caught up in stuff, it's a hard slog to work your way back.
Yeah, like it is for Ross Thalen here. He was in the lead and at least fighting for a podium position before he was unfortunately taken out. Used his fast repair in the pits and will ultimately come across the line in 12th place. And then we have Cotter and Anderson, both cars to receive drive-through penalties in this race, will come across the line to take the last couple of positions here. So, very interesting sequence of events here at Daytona for the opening race of the night, but we still have one coming up after this. Let's see how they finished here in the Dev Series. Matthew McMillan started in 9th place and will come through to take victory from Cameron Edwards and Brad Minchell, who round out the podium places. Dylan Sites is going to take 4th place, and Michael Latter rounding out the top 5. Jack Gray comes home in 6th place. David Worrell splits his starting position in half, 14th to 7th. John Van Ree gains 4 spots to finish in 8th. Michael Gore also 4 spots gained to finish in 9th. Shane Newlands actually looks like has gotten a post-race penalty, it seems, from iRacing. He's been demoted to 10th spot there. James Zeiss is going to take 11th with Fallon, Cotter, Anderson, the last finishers. Unfortunately, Clay Richards, despite qualifying on pole position, will not get any result from this race. Could not take the start due to his connection to the server dropping, and Tim Nicol and Neil Woodburn did not take to the starting grid at all. Well, it's time to give our thanks here to the myriad sponsors of this series. Of course, our title sponsor, Shannons Insurance, long-term supporters of the NTE series and have been the naming rights sponsors since its inception. Shannons is Australia's leading insurance provider for motoring enthusiasts, and Shannons Auctions is Australia's leading auction house for veteran, vintage, classic, sporting and modified vehicles, as well as classic motorcycles, motoring memorabilia and numerical number plates. Shannons have recently launched a new online quote feature, which is quite handy. To get a quote on your car, bike or home insurance, visit www.shannons.com.au or phone that iconic phone number 13 46 46. Daniel?
We also have the Pool Guys Adelaide, who are proudly South Australian owned family business. Pool Guys Adelaide have an extensive knowledge and experience in maintaining, upgrading and looking after all your pool needs. Pool Guys have been a long-term supporter of this series, and for all your pool servicing needs and equipment, visit www.thepoolguysadelaide.com. They also have a massive wealth of knowledge within the pool industry, as well as offering high-quality customer service to ensure you understand the importance of pool care, as well as maintaining your pool and equipment. The Pool Guys Adelaide are part owners of the series, with Josh Drage entered in the V8s later on tonight in car 888.
And our next sponsor here is, of course, West Oz Roof Restorations, who aim to provide you with an easy and hassle-free roof restoration and to give you the best possible job with the least disruption. So most jobs can be completed in just 2 or 3 days with the weather playing ball, and we don't have other jobs on the go at the same time. So it means we can really focus on your job first and give you that great finish with a full 10-year guarantee. West Oz Roof Restorations is structured a lot different to the other roof restoration companies, as we don't use salesmen or try to sell the job. It's the owners that will do the whole process with you from the start to the finish. One of the 2 partners in the business is our registered painter, and he's also the tradesman that will apply the 3-coat system that we use. It includes 1 coat of primer and 2 coats of colour from their wide range of colour options. For more information on West Oz Roof Restorations, visit www.westozroof.com.au. And West Oz Roof Restorations are owned by series entrant Daniel Norris in the number 27.
Hire Power NT. Are you in the middle of a construction project in the Northern Territory and need plant hire equipment fast? The professional team at Hire Power NT can supply all of your Darwin and Catherine plant rental hire equipment needs, with on-site delivery also available. They're based in Yarrawonga, Darwin and Catherine. They're a local family-owned and operated business with more than 30 years of industry experience. Their vast range of machinery and equipment will accommodate your domestic, commercial or industrial needs. They only supply equipment in superior condition from 3 months to a year old, so you've got that quality assurance that it's going to perform optimally, even under a heavy workload. From specialised hydraulic equipment and general tools through to heavy machinery, fully mine-spec'd, Hire Power NT can service all of your plant hire equipment requirements. For all of your requirements in Darwin, Catherine or Yarrawonga, visit Hire Power NT or visit www.hirepowernt.com.au. The team is happy to offer advice and arrange delivery for you as well.
Next, we have the Breaking Late podcast. The Breaking Late podcast is a motorsports-focused podcast focusing primarily on the Repco Supercars Australia Championship, along with the Formula One World Championship and many other championships worldwide. Join while they discuss the previous round as well as the current news and previews to the next rounds in the championships. The Breaking Late will be running a special NT Series podcast, chatting with the winners and wrapping up each round from the 2023 Shannons Insurance NT Series. Stay up to date with the Breaking Late podcast on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. And the Breaking Late is run by series entrants Michael Gore and Mitch Strzelecki.
VRS, the racing school. They're our next sponsor, and they've supplied each of the race setups for the 2023 NTE Series and are offering the winner of the development series a VRS coaching pack. So VRS have a team of dedicated racing coaches which can really help you to be your best out on the sim and in the real world as well. So for more information, visit www.virtualracingskill.com.
Turn In Race Apparel is run by series entrant Ross Thalen in the 166, and they're also the series merchandise providers. If you're interested in any series merchandise, you can order your very own from www.nteseries.com.au/merch. Turn In offer fully custom clothing for your race team or club. No minimum order, fast turnaround times. Visit turnin.store for all of your merchandise needs.
Next, we have Tim Nichols Photography, who is one of Darwin and Northern Territory's leading event, corporate, sports, and motorsports photography companies. Tim Nichols Photography also specialises in weddings, however, is only selected times throughout the year. Tim will ensure his clients receive the personal service they deliver for they require for their special day. Tim is one of the official photographers for the NTE series, and you can check Tim's out at www.timnicholsphotography.com.au for all your NT photograph needs. Be sure to check him out on track tonight behind the wheel, the number 23.
And along with Tim, we have another photographer on board here, being Prestige Cinematography. They are our official development series sim photographer, so we'll see plenty of photos from the GR86s from the guys at Prestige. Prestige Cinematography captures high quality photographs from the virtual world, racing shots and livery reveals. Prestige Cinematography can do it all for you. And for all your sim photography needs, visit their website or through Prestige Cinematography on Facebook. Prestige is, of course, run by a series entrant and someone who we saw quite a bit of in that race, Bradley Mitchell.
Indeed. Fantastic to see all of these partners on board for the Shannons NTE series for 2023. We're going to step aside very briefly here on SimSpeed TV and come back for the main race action. This is going to be fantastic. 600 horsepower V8 beasts around the Daytona road course. Stay with us.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.
You're watching the Shannons NTE series here on SimSpeed TV. This is going to be a fantastic race, this one. We've already seen plenty of interesting happenings in the development series, and now we up the power and we up the speed. This is how things are going to be looking for the NTE Series Round 2. A 40-minute race, and of course there's 35 litres of starting fuel baked into the setups of these cars, so the drivers will only be able to make it about 7 laps before they have to make their pit stop. So Daniel and Hayden, this is going to be fantastic. Daniel, to you first. If that Dev Series race is anything to go by, we're certainly up for some high-octane action here.
Yeah, mate, we saw a cracking race just before for the GT86s around here, and it's going to be no different tonight coming into the V8s as well. Lap time's definitely going to go up a little bit quicker. We're looking at about 25 to 30 second difference. So for the guys transitioning from the GTs into the V8s now, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, especially with the way those cars put the power down. But the racing will be hard and fast. We've already seen some big incidents down through the bus stop chicane. It's going to get worse as we get on in this one. 40 minutes on the clock for these guys, and we've got plenty of guys that are also going to be starting further down the field than probably where they would like to be after not having completed enough of the mandatory laps. We'll touch on that right at the end of qualifying to go through it, but it's going to be a cracking race in the V8s.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Hayden, we're checking out the conditions here. Obviously, it being nighttime conditions, it's coming up to 9:45 p.m. in sim time, and it's looking very icy out there. Probably not icy in the literal sense, but a 23-degree track is certainly not going to be fun on tyres fresh out of the pits.
No, it's not doing anybody in a 600 horsepower supercar any favours there. A bit of a cold track. There's going to be a bit of argy-bargy. We've got a bit of unsettled business from the earlier race as well. So this is going to be something pretty awesome as we come up into our 15-minute qualifying session.
Yeah, 9 minutes to go in said session as we see how things worked out after round 1. Blake Warboys taking the win from David Coleman and Justin McLean completing the podium. There's going to be more than a few drivers here who didn't have the best of races in round 1 and are going to look for a tiny bit of redemption here at Daytona. See what the likes of Nitschke and Nickel can do in 4th and 5th there. Of course, this is a very close gap for the lead of the championship, Daniel. There's still plenty to figure out from here. It's not the shortest of seasons that we've seen, but certainly there's going to not be too many opportunities to get max points here.
No, it's going to be a tough one for the guys to get themselves up on the podium there. And with the field as competitive as it is, every position counts. That being said, also the guys have a couple of opportunities to grab that extra point here and there throughout the course of the season. As we've seen so far in the GT race, we had plenty of our drivers giving some onboard cameras, and I mean that's just 1 point in the bag just from doing that, however. But it's going to come down to consistency at the end of the day. You can be the fastest out there, but if you don't put the points together and you don't string the races together, you're not going to find yourself on the top step at the back end of the season. And for Blake, defending series champ, he's one to watch out. As we saw last time out, he drove the wheels off the Ford there, and we're going to see him do much the same thing again tonight.
Yeah,
it is that consistency that's really key. As we look at our wall of drivers here, this is quite a sight.
Yeah, all of these drivers are going to be getting an extra point for having their real life scene up in the sim broadcast. And well, no surprise to see that Blake Warboys is currently the top of the timesheets, 3.5 tenths ahead of Brenton Nitschke, with Tiago Macedo in 3rd place at the moment. There's Nitschke. Looks like it's a Mustang 1-2 up the front there, but of course Brenton Nitschke for the Juiced Frog Leap Racing team. Blake Warboys for WKMP Sim Sports, and of course WKMP stands for Wodonga Karts and Parts. Let's see what Nitschke can do with 1 minute 44.4, his fastest lap. He's actually going to test the pit entry here, and this is going to be quite important, isn't it, Daniel? Practicing your pit entry. It's something that here on SimSpeed TV we've said time and time again. If you practice anything, practice your pit stop, because here at Daytona you are slowing down from such a high speed, and it's quite a difficult pit entry actually.
Well, it is like you come off the bank at max chat in these cars, and you've got to get it slowed down onto the speed limit before you hit the entry. Now, you might see a few guys try and extend the pit entry there, run it right out to what would be the traditional fast lane if we were at Daytona to watch, let's say, the IMSA race in real life. But it's about getting it down there. And when we have the field as big as it is later on in the race, trying to find your way into your pit bay is going to be critical. Now, a lot of these guys probably earlier in the year have had a fair chance to get their head around getting a car of some description into the lane here at Daytona with the Daytona 24 that iRacing ran back in February. But that's a different animal going from those GT cars to the V8s.
Yeah, incredibly different beast. Modern GT machinery is designed to be as easy to drive as possible due to the amount of gentleman racers that compete in those cars in the real world, but these cars are not that. They are fire-breathing V8 monsters, 600 plus horsepower going through both rear wheels at exactly the same rate. The differential is locked on these things. You can't adjust it, though interestingly in real life the regulations that these cars ran to were originally set up to have open differential settings, and I can't help but imagine, Hayden, how different that would make the cars drive as we check out replay here of a WKMP Commodore of David Warren going wide in turn one.
Keep an eye on this because what's going to happen here to
Oh
Warren?
dear.
Oh, yeah, he's that's a bit of a hit there. So not what you want on your qualifying, but you'd rather do it now than in the race, I think it's fair to say. But as you said, yeah, the difference between the open diff and the lock diff, I think it's pretty key in what makes supercars so great is these big rear power steering, powerful cars. I was at the Motorsport Festival in Adelaide here today. I seen Valtteri Bottas in the 2016 Bathurst winner doing a multitude of burnouts all over the circuit, which was fabulous. But not just the racing that would be a bit worse without that lock diff, but definitely worse skids as well.
Yeah, for sure. Michael Gore, car 39, and oh dear, that's a head-on collision to the wall, it seems, which wouldn't be too fun in virtual reality. That's coming onto the oval. That's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on here, Daniel, because these cars don't have anti-lock brakes. It's very easy to actually lock the brakes on the way into corners, and that turn is a place where you'll definitely be seeing that happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, turn 6 is a tough one in its own rights to get the momentum that you need to, and then also get the car slowed down enough to not find its way into the tyre barrier. And for whatever reason, iRacing have made it a rather sticky tyre barrier, as we saw Michael there really struggling to get that car out of the tyres and back underway. So if you do make contact there, it could almost put paid to what could be a good night for you. The other big ones that we really need to keep an eye on, as we saw down into turn 2, we saw the WPMK car going off the end there, and then down into the southern horseshoe is another tricky one where it's very easy to grab a brake as you flick the car through the kink into the hairpin area there, and if you do make it a little bit wrong, you just get that car that little bit unsettled, you're going to go straight on and find your way into the tyres as well.
And there you are, car number 65 of James Zeitz into the V8 from the GT86 and practicing a pit stop there, getting a little bit out of control on the way into the box. Nathan Brown, teammate to Blake Warboy, is also in a Mustang with a blue color scheme, demonstrating how difficult it is to put down the power out of these hairpins, particularly the second one, because it looks like he's doing this on purpose. An expression session at the end of qualifying here. But I think the point still stands. Yeah, I think the point still stands, though. The exit of that second horseshoe hairpin is quite difficult, and it's another one of those corners where there's multiple lines available to use. Generally, the line is to delay in a little bit, straighten out the exit, do a bit of a late apex jobby, but the exit is still curved, and it means that you're putting a lot of force through those rear tires, and it can be very easy to get some oversteer on. We'll check again the track map here at Daytona, and you'll see down there at turn 5, down the bottom right of your screen, that hairpin that tightens up a little bit in the middle. That's the corner I'm talking about, and it is incredibly difficult to get right in any car. But you also got to be careful of the exit coming out of turn 6 onto the oval. You see that the track widens a little bit there, and it can be up to you whether or not you stick tight to the inside or run it out wide to get a bit more acceleration. But regardless, Daniel, you're going to be having trouble with traction around here. Yeah, that's the...
Yeah, exactly. Traction is key, especially in the slow speed corners, turns 1, 3, 5, and as you say, out of 6 there. So getting that power progression on nice and setting the car up to sort of float through those corners is really going to be key to not only extending the tyre life right the way through to the back end of the stints, but giving yourself an opportunity to put one up down the inside through the drafts. The other thing we probably need to have a quick touch on too, Reece, and we talked about it with pit entry before. The other one is pit exit. Now, iRacing a couple of years back, and with the updates that Daytona took, transitioned where the pit exit delineation line is. So the guys have got a very slow run around the inside of turn 1, trying to get the power down through the little S before they got to plant it and then set themselves for a run in towards turn 3 there.
Yeah, it used to be that the pit limiter could be taken off right past the final pit box, but now you have to keep the pit limiter on all the way through the inside of turn 1. Well, we'll see how that affects the drivers in the race. This is how they line up at the end of qualifying. Blake Warboys takes pole position alongside Brenton Nitschke. Tiago Massadou and Connor Nixon will take up the second row. Justin McLean and Josh Drake round out the top 6. Tim Nicol and David Coleman will share the 4th row of the grid. It's Ash Barella and Jake Burgess who round out the top 10. Then we've got Scotty Van Loon and Chris Nankiville taking up 11th and 12th. Hayden, who's lining up next to 24th place?
Yeah, so we've got Nathan Brown and Ryan Robson in 13th and 14th there, Dow and Michael Stewart, Christopher Blanchard and Neil Woodburn. So up to 18th place, just 1.5 seconds off the lead there, which, as we saw in that GR86 race, it's not a huge amount when the slipstream comes into play. Daniel Norris, Michael Freeman, Jack Gray, Jared Burns, Cameron Edwards, and Dylan Sates, who is clearly quite quick, rounds out the top 24.
Then we'll see James Sites start at 25th along Brad Mitchell next to him, Craig Spencer, and Ross Thalen. Mark Peck, 9th, and John Van Ree rounding out the 30th position. 31st, we'll see David Worrell along with Adam Texia. Then we've got Michael Ladder in 33rd position. 34th will be Sebastian Murray Westbrook. And 35th, we'll have Alexani. And 36th, we'll see Andrew Hoffman.
Yeah, indeed we will. Seb Murray Westberg is in the safety car, one of the safety cars there. Matthew McMillan, Anthony Jewell, Michael Gore, Tyrone Anderson, and Justin Cotter, as well as Shane Newens as well, all on the grid as well. It's going to be a pit lane start, and this is what you were talking about earlier, Daniel. All those cars down there, they haven't done the minimum required amount of laps before the race.
Yeah, exactly. So for the guys that we see starting out of the back tonight, as you said, we've got Mark Powell, Matthew McMillan, Anthony Jewell, Alex Annie, James Zeitz, Jack Wittes, Mitch Strzelecki, and Shane Newens. So unfortunately for those guys, not enough laps completed, which did see them not taking part in qualifying tonight. And for 40 minutes, it's a lot of work for them to do to come back through a field as packed as what we're seeing here tonight.
And this is a rule we've effectively brought in, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is a rule we've brought in to make sure the guys do a bit of practice during the week. So when it gets to race night, they're actually sort of up to speed and up to spec. So it is a hard place to start from there in the pit lane. But the idea being, you know, if you're a bit rusty and you don't know where you're going just yet, maybe it'll keep you out of the way of the fast guys.
Yeah, that's exactly the point there. Of course, you know, time and commitment can vary from round to round, but we'll see how those drivers do once they make their way out of the pits. The time runs down to 0 and the revs rise. Blake Warboys is going to lead these drivers away. Round 2 of the Shannons NTE series is go, and that's a slightly better start from Brenton Nitschke upside, and oh goodness, there's already a problem, and it looks like the midfield is an absolute parking lot right now. Drivers not having enough traction off the line, wheels spinning up the banking. That has taken out multiple cars and left plenty of drivers with heavy damage.
Yeah, that's unlike what we saw in the GTs. I think that was initially kicked off by Tiago Macedo, just getting a poor jump to begin with, and unfortunately for all the guys further back in the field, nowhere to go, and that's a lot of bent race cars early on.
Yeah, safety car has been called, which isn't much of a surprise. It seems like, yeah, it was number 5 of Tiago Macedo who spun the wheels and went up into Justin McLean. From that point, it was all over, Hayden.
Yeah, it's hard to launch a 600 horsepower locked-in race car in a 45-degree banking. We probably didn't really mention just how difficult that is, but there is a good reason that NASCAR's run under rolling starts. That is, you know, physics doesn't like you trying to do that, and it was sort of, yeah, it was bound to happen. The guys who started in the pits probably had the safest place on the whole track to actually get underway.
Yeah, agreed. Very much agreed. We're going to see it from on board David Coleman's perspective. So you'll see Tiago Macedo, a few cars up there in the top left of screen as they pull away, and McLean moves to the inside, but Macedo just spins right into him, and from that point, well, not much you can do.
Yeah, it's a really tough spot for the guys further back too, because once that track starts to get blocked and congested like that, there's really not much to go. And for the guys that are further back too, they've got a bit of momentum now starting to come into these cars. You can't really arrest it that quickly on cold brakes and cold tyres.
Yeah, it just becomes an absolute blockage. You know, there's nowhere to go and going too fast to do anything about it, and the guy behind is going even faster. So it's, yeah, end up being a bit of a passenger, as we're seeing a lot of guys heading into the pit lane.
Yeah, including our race leader Blake Warboys, and the reason for this is, of course, you're locked into 35 litres of starting fuel in these events. So once you actually start racing, you can fill the car up. With the safety car, that basically gives you a free opportunity to get the tank fueled up without losing too much time. On board with Jack Gray, he was right in the middle of all of this. What on earth happened? Well, you see drivers slowing ahead and take it easy, take it easy. Oh, it is an absolute ocean of cars that you have to pick your way through. All things considered, I think Gray did a pretty good job of avoiding most of that, though not without.
Done well.
Yeah,
slippery.
not without a bit of contact, though. But I think that's that just comes with the territory when you're starting at a place like this. Interesting to note, it seems that Michael Stewart and also Connor Nixon and Scotty Van Loon have moved ahead of Blake Warboys here. Warboys actually stopping for 33 seconds, which means that he has filled that tank up pretty much all the way. And a bit of a checkup going on here out of the horseshoe. That is the comparison with Michael Stewart, only 13.3 seconds stopped, so not much time spent in the pits there for Stewart versus Warboys, which is a bit curious, Daniel.
It is. I would have thought, you know, much like we saw with the guys coming in, that everyone would have topped the tanks up full on and gone on from there, because you are going to be a little further back. You're going to have a bit of a draft, which is not going to hurt the tyres anywhere near as much, but it extends your window at when you can come in later on in the race, and it really opens it up for your strategies to play through. I think a few of these guys are maybe expecting we are going to see another safety car, as we've got Jake Burgess down on the inside. I'm not sure whether he's got a problem going on with the number 100 Commodore there, but it looks like he may have also exited back to the lane, so that's unfortunate for him. But from a strategy wise, I'm very surprised that we haven't seen everyone take the opportunity to fill up. That being said too, our top 9 cars that are in the race here at the moment have not come down, so they're taking a bit of a risk on maybe a safety car later on and trying to work their strategies a bit differently to everyone else.
And it's probably a pretty safe bet with 45 supercars on this track that there might be another safety car. But personally, I really like how Warboys did it. He's taken all the free fuel he can get, and the other guys might have been trying to get a bit of track position. But as we've seen here, it's just not that valuable compared to at a normal racetrack. So I reckon Warboys is actually even more in the driver's seat, sitting there in 13th, if he can stay out of trouble, than he was sitting on pole, now that he's got a full tank of gas.
Yeah, well, this shall be a bit difficult to pick apart. with now plenty of varying strategies, only a couple of laps into this race. So Michael Freeman is the driver who currently leads the race here with the safety car out on track. And moving up into second is Daniel Norris, and Jared Burns up into third. And it looks like, interestingly, Masadou stayed out as well. He was the car that unfortunately was the instigator of all that carnage off the start-finish line, and he's carrying quite some heavy damage, but he remains in fourth spot. Dylan Seitz also picking up a ton of damage. He's stayed out and is in P5. Potential passing under safety car under review from race control as well for the 662 and the 999. That's Justin McLean and DePaul. Now, I don't know exactly what the circumstances are behind that, Daniel, but still, that could be a pretty big blow for both of those drivers.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm not sure how that one would have taken effect. The only thing I can think is maybe trying to unlap themselves and get back around. Dink Powell sitting there in 40th position, so he is right on the back of the train as the guys work their way across the line, but that's a bit of an odd one.
We see drivers coming into the pits as well. Looks like Connor Nixon, Chris Blanchard, Michael Freeman, our former leader, has come in as well. Looks like also Andrew Teixeira, Michael Latta, Alex Zani, and Andrew Hoffman. A big raft of drivers coming into the pit lane on the second or third lap under the safety car here. And a little bit of a disadvantage, I think, for those guys. If they had pitted a little bit earlier, they might have been able to put themselves in a position slightly further up the field, but delaying that pit stop means they are all going to fall to the back of the train, Hayden.
Yeah. Like I said before, I think Warboys did it best. He got in straight away. He got a full tank of juice. These guys, they might have an extra lap on him worth of fuel when all is said and done, but they're going to be a lot of positions back. They're going to be right at the rear of the train, and it's just not what you want to see. Now it looks like we got a penalty for Powell, and we're going to see exactly what course they're in.
Yeah, so watching the guys across the lane, it's a very late dive into the pit lane area, and a subsequent spin for good measure.
Gets worse, Jay is telling us. So what's happened here? Oh no.
Oh no.
That's a bit of a rookie error there from Dean Powell.
Yeah, that's one for the highlights reel at the end of the season, isn't it?
Yeah, very. I mean, pit lane is the one place where you don't want that kind of thing to happen. Not just someone spinning, but then trying to do a flick spin when there's a car approaching. And no surprise to see that race control haven't looked too kindly on that one. On board here with the 919 of Michael Stewart, and he is on the VR headset as well. I tell you what, VR would be such an experience in these cars around this track. Just seeing that mountain of banking climbing up above you. Stewart is going to start out of 9th place, and he is second of the cars that have pitted. Scotty Van Loon in front of him is the leader of the cars that have made a visit to the pit lane. And the throttle is on because the safety car has come in. And we'll be getting our green flag here with Daniel Norris being the one to lead them across the line to start the fourth lap here at Daytona with half an hour remaining on the clock. Jared Burns and Tiago Masadou taking up the rest of the podium places. First time they have approached turn 1 at speed. And Norris manages to get it slowed down and hits the apex of turn 1 very nicely. Does anyone fall victim to the first corner here? Blake Warboys losing a couple of spots. It looks like he ran a bit deep around the outside. And James Zeitz spinning off in the background. That's not the first time we've seen someone with issues at the first turn here at Daytona. But otherwise, it seems like most of the drivers have gotten through those first couple of turns cleanly.
Yeah, great restart from everyone there. I was a little hesitant to see whether we'd see all 40 cars make their way through, but great job to the guys getting back underway. Looks like we've got a little bit of more carnage further back down out of turn 2 or turn 3. And we're hearing it's Michael Gore who's rotated around, so he drops down to 41st position, and that's going to be another tough night for him. But the battling so far, as the guys work their way back up onto NASCAR 2 and 3, is looking pretty good at the moment. Looks like we've got Craig Spencer here just bringing himself back up on the lane. But all in all, mate, that's a really good restart.
I'll correct myself very quickly and say it was Jake Burgess who spun at the International Horseshoe there. Sorry, Hayden, go on.
Yeah, that was a much tighter restart than I actually expected. That was very good from the guys, very mature. There is 30 minutes worth of racing left, and this is a proper packed racing circuit. So, as we said, the track position right now isn't vital. As long as you're with a friend and as long as you're there or thereabouts in the top 15, I think you're in a good spot here with good fuel on board to be right where you need to be at the very end. We spoke before about it being about a 7-lap fuel window that they had out of the box. For anybody who hasn't taken their fuel stock yet, which they really should have done under the pit lane, just some carnage in the background. Oh,
yeah. We're good there. We've got 2 cars off the circuit, actually 3. Neil Woodburn, Tyrone Anderson, and I'm trying to scroll back. There's so many cars. Yeah, Craig Spencer, not to mention Dylan Seitz, who is missing his front end now. The carnage continuing there, and it doesn't look like he's getting going anytime soon. That's probably worth a replay, because my goodness, what an incident that was. Yeah, Dylan Seitz has blown the engine. We might see another safety car out of this one if he can't get that going. Here we go then. Dylan Seitz brakes a bit early, but then gets slammed in the rear, and unfortunately the dividing wall for the pit lane is right there, so he goes spearing across the track, takes out one of the Frog Leap cars, and well, that is race over for Dylan Seitz. He's been given permission to tow back to the lane, so there's no safety car again for the time being. Look at this pack. Oh goodness, there's that Seitz on the bottom there, going for a big slide. Manages to keep it going incredibly.
Yeah, he did well to recover that and get the car back up onto the oval there. But for anyone who's done Daytona in the sim, you know that the cars do not like transitioning from the apron up onto the banking there. So he's done a great job. I can tell you too, just looking back at that replay that we watched just a moment ago, I reckon Mr. Blake Warboys, he had the brown pants moment just as all that unfolded around him. Yeah,
he was right in the midst of all that, wasn't he? But he has managed to keep going, and Warboys is now in 5th place. Tiago Masadou, meanwhile, takes the race lead. Daniel Norris having some trouble. This is what happened with Warboys. So Seitz right up ahead of him, and of course Seitz very much on the brakes early, and it looks like Warboys just escaped all of that, just got out ahead of all the carnage that then ensued.
Just the corner of it in the rearview mirror, all hell breaking loose.
All hell breaking loose. Speaking of, Michael Freeman spinning off there and back onto the track. This is absolute carnage here at Daytona. Ash Barella involved, Tyrone Anderson too, and yeah, Craig Spencer very slow on the circuit, missing his front end. It is all going off here. Corner after corner, it seems some kind of big incident is happening.
And we just talked all these guys up as Jack Gray there runs very wide out of 6th. We talked them all up on the restart about how good and clean and professional it all looks. And 5 minutes later, they're banging doors like there's no tomorrow, and we've got 1 lap left in the race. So it's going to be a bit of a battle of attrition now, as everyone really starting to get a few battle scars, and the car's looking a bit wounded.
Right, so let's think about this then. So Masadou, Burns, Robson, Norris, Peck, and Woodburn, as well as Potter and Anderson and Seitz and Spencer plus Michael Gore. Those are the cars that haven't come into the pits yet. Now the safety car plus pit lane start for a couple of them means that they might be able to go a lap or 2 longer on this first stint, but we should be expecting them to come into the pits in the next couple of laps. Here's Nathan Brown, meanwhile, who's currently embroiled in this incredible fight, going 3 wide. Just behind him here, Jack Gray with the momentum round the outside. Oh, who's going to come out of turn 1 here? They all managed to get into the corner all right, How do they go on the exit? Brown sliding the rears there to try and get ahead of all of this. Scotty Van Loon cannot do anything to overcome him, and diving up the inside is Chris Nankivell. Is he going to make contact? No, just pulls it up in time to avoid spinning Brown around. Speaking of spins, round goes Scotty Van Loon.
That will look like Speedway racing. Those boys are really having a go through there as we continue on with this. This race is just such good racing, these cars on this track. The guys have done a pretty good job of keeping it clean for the most part, and hopefully it stays that way with 24 minutes left until our checker flag.
Well, Jared Burns currently in second, and there's quite a battle embroiling behind him here. Ryan Robson holding on to third, but Blake Warboys, who pitted under the safety car and started on pole, is now right behind these two. Have a look at how much the slipstream is worth there. Robson was almost thinking about a move there on Jared Burns. He goes a bit deep into the bus stop, though. That could give the advantage to Warboys here on the exit. The Mustang right up behind the rear bumper and wing of that Commodore. And let's see how much of a boost this gives Blake Warboys. A little bit of side draft as well might come into effect here at Daytona. You can still get a speed boost by running alongside the car you're trying to pass. Warboys is on the outside here and doesn't look like he's going to have too difficult of a time, though, getting past as Burns goes straight into the tyre bundles on the outside there.
Yeah, good battle as we watch these two continue to work on. Unfortunate for Burns there, getting caught up. That's going to drop him further down. But just having a look at the onboard between both of these guys here with Warboys and Robson. Grabbing gears, trying to shuffle these cars around through turn 3 now into turn 4 of the kink. And Warboys has just managed to get that car up, sets himself into second position, and he's got 1.5 second gap now to close down over Tiago Massadou. And for Warboys, I think that strategy that we talked about early on is working out very, very handsomely for him with the pace of that car.
Yeah, it's definitely, he took the right move there, and it's what you expect to see from your series leader. He's just, it's those easy, smart strategy decisions. Watch this. We got Burns. Here. That looks like Burns, and that looks like Burns. Seems to have got away with that pretty lightly, all things considered, but not what you want to see.
Nah, getting on the brakes for turn 1 here at Daytona, you lock up even just a little bit or get your trajectory slightly wrong, and you're just going to go straight on. You not only have to consider the radius of the corner coming up, but also the transition off the banking and into turn 1. Drive-through penalty for car 663. Now that is Neil Woodburn for contact with Dylan Seitz on lap 5, and that no surprise to see that that was the incident that saw Seitz spearing back across the racetrack. Tiago Massadou comes in for his pit stop there to get fuel. He's joined in the pit lane by Daniel Norris, by Jared Burns, and by Mark Peck as well. We're probably going to see a couple more drivers come in the intervening moments as it's on here side by side across the line. Scotty Van Loon, one of the drivers in this fight here, and they give each other just enough room on the way into turn 1. Good stuff there. Nice clean move. More of that, please.
Nixon just looking a little bit ragged as he's run out through turn 2 there, but does hold on to that position up in through the north hairpin, and good drive out from him. Those guys working their way up. Nixon down 9 spots from where he started early on as the pit stop cycles their way through, but the pace from these guys is looking pretty decent at the moment. It was a 146 last time by for Nixon, 147 for Scotty Van Loon there.
Here's Chris Blanchard, who's moved up into 15th place. Technical problems for Ross Thalen up ahead of him. This is a very tight fight. You can see that Blanchard is trying to find any way through possible here. You've got to get a clean exit to have any chance of making a move here at Daytona. Ash Barella, Shane Newens, and of course Thalen up ahead of him. Let's see what the slipstream is like from on board then. On the sequential shifter for Chris Blanchard. And now the speed boost comes in. Of course, he's going to be getting a almost a triple draft here. And that's a dive up the inside of the bus stop. And he gets the move done. That was an incredible move. Beautiful stuff, but a spin up ahead. And, well, Asparella exits stage left.
Yeah, great run there through the bus stop for Blanchard. He fired that thing right in there and held on to the momentum. Fortunately for him coming on the exit there, didn't get caught up with his teammate having that rotation on the end of the bus stop there. So he's in good stead moving forward as we see a few more guys now just starting to jump into the lane. We had Ryan Robertson in there a moment ago, Van Loon's in there, Newens, Thalen and Cam Edwards all coming down to get their second stops completed tonight.
Here we go then. Moving through once more to car number 20. That's Chris Nankerville, who is currently in hot pursuit of Justin McLean for 4th place now, as we've seen more drivers come into the pit lane. Ryan Robson, Scotty Van Loon, Shane Newens, Cam Edwards is in there as well, and Andrew Hoffman in there for the 3rd time. David Worrell in there for trip to the pit lane number 2. So this has become a battle for 4th place. And Justin McLean, having taken a podium at Sandown, will be looking for a bit more out of this, especially considering we can see a post-race penalty. Firm has just come up for a bump and run on car 47. That's Tyrone Anderson. And Anderson currently way down in the field as well. So Justin McLean is not doing too well. Dear, that's John Van Reed, who's gone for a bit of an off there. The WKMP Commodore, car 515, down the order now at the moment, 17th spot. He will rejoin in.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too bad for him though. I think he managed to keep that car off the walls at 6 there, so not too much issue other than maybe a little bit of momentum and losing position. But he'll come back into contention here and see himself going further up as we watch a little bit of a battle on the wall there between turns 3 and 4. WPMK entry 14 there with a nice bit of a run, and he might be looking to try and make the outside move that we've seen a couple of guys already do here tonight. That's Asparella on the inside there of Josh Drage.
Yeah, Drage defensive on the way into turn 1, but gets on the brakes a little bit earlier. Barella almost went too deep, but again, turn 1 is one of the corners where you can be on the outside and actually get it done. Here's the penalty for McLean, and yeah, that looked like a bit of a bump on the way into the hairpin coming onto the oval section. Not much surprised to see that there was a penalty for that. Also a penalty that's come in for Anthony Jewell as well. It's a 40-second stop and hold for passing under the yellow line. Hayden, that shows you how seriously race control is taking that kind of violation.
Yeah, that's a pretty big penalty. So it's the same as what we saw earlier on in the night, which caused a really big incident. So someone dove under the yellow line, led to a huge crash. They got a 40-second stop and go penalty. So we're taking that sort of under the yellow line driving really seriously. And it's exactly the reasons we spoke about before. Transitioning from the apron onto the circuit here really unsettles your car. And when you're doing that at full race speed, fighting for a position, it is just down the lead. So that full 40-second penalty, we've got plenty of time to think about how much he's been robbed, but it is actually a well-deserved type of thing.
Well, we will shortly get a view as to what got Anthony Jewell that penalty play, and okay. Kind of forced there. Actually, there might be something else. Let's see what happens here through NASCAR. So yeah, no blame assigned for what we just saw. Straight, yeah, there we go. That's pretty clear cut, isn't it? Oh, actually, the penalty is being removed. We're just hearing from Anthony Jewell because he redressed it at turn 2. We can see that happening. wow. I'm amazed because I've just looked up at the clock in the top left of the corner. We've only got 14 and a half minutes remaining in this race. Where did all the time go?
Well, that's we could tell a 40-minute story based on all that one, mate. But we've got Michael Stewart here just jumping in the lane here out of P2, which we thought that battle was really starting to heat up there. But this will be his second stop for the night. And at 15 minutes to go, I reckon Reese will see him being able to set that car down and go through to the remainder of this one. It'll be interesting to see where he pulls out and whether he's got any company that he may be able to drive with. If we have a little bit further, we'll look back down the bus stop, the two Pecky cars getting involved in it. And I don't think there'll be any team issues here as the guys just work their way through.
Yeah, Mark Peck in the Mustang and Daniel Norris in the Commodore. And the slipstream is on now down the front straight, but looks like Norris actually lifting out of it a little bit, allowing Peck to keep the position. This is the view back from Jared Burns. Seems those cars are content to stay in a line for the time being. A little bit deep there for Mark Peck, though. Might hurt him in the long run here. Norris, meanwhile, has fallen under pressure from John Van Ree, who we just see in the background there. Looks like a second pit stop also for Andrew Teixeira in car 30. Moves out of the mid-20s as a result of taking a second stop. Another one of those guys who did not pit for full fuel under the safety car. Blake Warboys with the biggest of advantages here, leading by over 10 seconds from Tim Nicol.
Yeah, you've got to say it's his race to lose, really. So we'd expect to see him, like I was saying, he'll come back in at some point for a splash and dash. But it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up regarding lap traffic. But for the cars that he's racing, he's in a really good place. Indeed.
Taking the full tank under safety car definitely helped him. But I don't know if he'll have to pit again, considering all of that. It's a 111 litre fuel tank. I'm just going to do a quick calculation on the fly. That's not my calculator app, that's my calendar app. The icons look too similar. 111 litres divided by a rough fuel usage per lap of about 4.6. That gives you 24 laps. Warboys is on lap 14 at the moment, and tell you what, I think he is perfectly fine to the end of the race.
Yeah, and he's also building up a little bit of a margin too. If you consider the pace that he's had in this car compared to everyone else there, his best lap time was just over 1.3 seconds quicker than the guys around him. Lap on lap, he's hovering around that 144, mid 144 range, even while making his way through the traffic as well. So that's also going to help with the longevity of the tank. He's not having to modulate the throttle as much and pick that car back up through higher and lower speeds. There's a penalty there for the 888. That's Josh Drage. And he will have to come in after contact with the 28.
Number 28 driven by Anthony Jewell there. So Jewell escaped the penalty. Now, unfortunately, he has had some trouble with Josh Drage. We see it here. Coming into turn one in the middle of quite the pack. Drage on the inside, and oh yeah, he ran too deep. And that tiny bit of contact, at least from what it seemed on the slow-mo, just turned into something even worse there for Anthony Jewell.
Yeah,
wrong place, wrong spot.
Well, I don't even know if Drage really ran a bad line. It was one of the ultimate lines you can run through that spot. It's just hard when those cars converge right at that point at the second apex where it went through. But he's made his run down through the lane. It's going to set him back down probably about 17th position when it's all said and done, as he takes a look down through the long pit stop there. So a little bit of work left for him to do later on tonight, but he should be thereabouts as far as the field strategy goes too.
Yeah, makes sense. So 10 minutes left in the race, and under hot pursuit from Ryan Robson. Oh, Ryan Robson evidently in hot pursuit of his rears blowing out with the amount of power being put down out of those hairpins. Oh, and goodness me, that wheel is a little bit loose on the rig, it seems.
He needs to bolt that boy down big time. Look at the Fanatec rocking back and forwards.
That's a direct drive rim as well.
It can't be good to use that, can it? Like, it can't be good for the wheel. It can't be nice to have it rocking around that much. That would be distracting, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, my Thrustmaster T500 RS is bolted to my rig, and it still moves around a little bit, but not that much. And considering that it's a direct drive wheel, there would undoubtedly be a good amount of force going through that thing. Albeit you can tune it so the steering is a little bit lighter, but yeah, you can see the kind of forces that are being put through it there. And Robson evidently a little bit distracted by a couple of other things as well. Fortunately, he's remembering to shift up.
He's playing with something. Maybe he's messing with some settings with that steering wheel, trying to make this not be such a problem. We saw him earlier, and he wasn't doing that. The wheel wasn't moving around like that. So maybe he is messing with some settings to try to get that to calm down. Because they're not a cheap piece of equipment. You don't want it wrapping around in your hands like that.
No. Well, there's been change for second. Justin McLean has overtaken Tim Nicol, and this is how he did it. Very nice run coming out of the bus stop and out of NASCAR 4, just ramping off the top of the banking and getting the move done. And considering that McLean has a post-race penalty hanging over his head, Daniel, I think it makes sense that he's being nice and aggressive in the late stages to try and get as much of an advantage as he can.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got to just, put the head down, bum up at this point, and just go and see what sort of a gap you can get to minimise the issues you're going to suffer later on when that post-race penalty is awarded. So he's getting on with business. He picked up the pace just a little bit too. Last time for him was 145, plays 146 from Tim Nichols. So he's definitely got some pace to burn in that car, and he'll need every bit of it over this last 7 minutes to try and extend a bit of a margin there to sort of give himself a slight safety net as we see some more heavy battling down through the bus stop. That's a good shot between those guys, and don't make issues for either of them getting through there.
Yeah, it's Alex Zarni and Matthew McMillan who are fighting over the 11th and 12th positions. Very well executed bus stop from the both of them, but have a look at how much benefit the slipstream is giving McMillan. He almost drew up to Zarni's bumper coming into turn 1, but not enough space for that to happen. A slight lock up for Zarni. He's gone deep, and I saw him cranking on the steering lock on my end to try and get that thing turned, but nothing doing at all for Alex Zarni, and he loses 2 spots out of that because Michael Stewart's just gone through 12th.
Yeah, he put in a lot of hard work there, and he's thrown it all away now.
He has, and Stuart's been a little bit of a quiet horse throughout the course of the race here, guys. Up 4 spots from where he started, sitting there in that 12th spot. But he's got some quick movers around him with McMillan and Zarni as well, 26, 22 spots for them respectively, as we continue to watch this battle unfold in front of us.
Yeah, on board with Michael Stewart, who's now turning up the wick to try and get past McMillan. You see how much force is going through that wheel as well. Really fantastic to see exactly what these drivers are going through around this circuit. And this is a relatively recent scan of Daytona, only from, I'd say, about a year ago at most, but still a lot of bumps to contend with as Stewart gets a great run, but 3 wide into the bus stop. He's going to have to give some room to Zarni here, who gets past, and oh no, contact there between Zarni and McMillan. And Michael just avoids getting into the wall, but that is a big wound that he's going to have to contend with for the rest of this race.
Yeah, fortunately not to get speared by anyone coming through the bus stop either, so that car will get back underway, but he's got a lot of work to do. As you see the momentum drop from that rotation there against the guys that were able to do it nice and clean, so plenty of work to do. 5 minutes left on the clock for him to try and claw back in 1 or 2 positions.
Let's watch the wheel through turn 1 and 2 here for Robson. Still rocking around a bit too much. I think it needs to be secured a little bit on the back end, but goodness, that is way too much movement. I don't know how he's dealing with that, Hayden.
No, that's, yeah, you don't want that. That's it's just, it would have to be distracting. It would have to be moving around in his hands. I just don't think it would be good for the mounting points on the wheel. I don't think it'd be good for the drive system of the wheel to have that sort of lateral back and forth motion. It's not how they're designed to work. So get on the pedals and tighten that bad boy up after this race would be a good idea.
Look at this fight. Meanwhile, second WK&P Mustang here of Nathan Brown chasing down David Coleman here, and it actually looks like Coleman only recently made the move on Brown because he was behind at the line on the previous lap. So Brown looking to get this back here. Look at the overspeed here from the Mustang, and he's going to draw alongside across the start-finish line into turn one. David Coleman finishing second in the first round. He will keep that position for the time being. 5th place secured, but for how long? There's only 3.5 minutes left in this race. That is a maximum of 3 laps. So let's just be gentle towards the end.
Holden's not going to be an easy competitor here for Brown to get around. We saw how good he was under pressure at Sandown in round 1. David, he'll just pick the marks, put that car where he needs to, and he's going to force the guys around him to make those moves. So one to watch out for. I think this battle for 5th is going to heat up right the way through for the last 2.5 minutes.
He's been under the radar, Coleman, this whole race, but we did see how good he was at Sandown, and that was, he's got past him. He's still within the slipstream range probably here, so Brown will be in a situation to be back in the fight at some point here. But Coleman, you're right, he's really good at putting it in the right places to make the other guy have to make the move the hard way.
Well, Brown's going to have to focus on the exit of the bus stop here, nail the curbs. You can put your whole car across those orange and white curbs, but be careful not to get into the grass. I'd say that's about 1.5 seconds worth of time that he's got to make up there. So he should be getting a little whisper of slipstream there, but it's not going to be enough for him to really draw up, at least by the time they get to this point on the next lap. He's going to have to focus on the infield of the circuit. No elevation change, of course, here at Daytona. It's nice and flat on the infield, but it's so technical. You've really got to drive the wheels off your car to get the best out of it here. Try and manage the grip. And looks like he's being very aggressive on the way into the corners here, but it's all about the exit. How does it work out here for car 86? It seems that they're just level with each other. This is going to be a tight battle towards the end unless there's a mistake from either of them. Yeah,
it's going to be tough to see. I'm just watching the splits as the guys work their way through the infield and off turn 1 through the infield out to the back of the circuit. And we saw under the draft there, it was about a 1/10 of a second advantage to Brown. He came out of the bus stop 8 tenths behind, but as they go through the infield, that gap extended now 1.1 seconds up onto the banking of NASCAR 2 and 3. So Coleman's got some very good drive still in this car at this late stage of the race as well. So he's doing everything he needs to do to try and hold on to that, and that gap continues to work in his favour, 1.15 seconds now.
And then it's something that you're going to see is tyre management and who's driving these cars well. Really starting to play in at the end of these races is, we saw it kind of at Sandown as well. Who's actually got car left to drive when the flag comes out?
White flag for Blake Warboys, and this has been nothing short of sheer domination from the reigning champion of the Shannons NTESERIES. Perfectly executed the pit stop under the safety car, and he's just been driving his own race towards the end, hasn't he? He is currently nearly 15 seconds ahead of second place. So not much more to say about Warboy's performance here other than it's been fantastic. There's second place. Justin McLean, who of course will have a post-race penalty, and oh dear, Is that? Oh no. That's Michael Freeman, who's unfortunately had a spin there. Coming out of the first horseshoe, he gets back going, and there's further problems here for Brenton Nitschke. Oh, stay off the racing line, Brenton. Oh dear, this is not going to be good here. Nitschke, where was he at the line? 20 seconds, so further issues there for Nitschke on the final lap, missing the front end. But for Blake Warboys, he's far away from any of this, and it's literally just going up through the gears from here, isn't it? The Mustang driver will make his way duly to the start-finish line, and it's going to be 2 from 2 in the Shannons NTE Series for 2023 for Blake Warboys. Out comes the checkered flag, and there we go. Another win on the board, increasing his advantage. Justin McLean will cross the line in second, but with that post-race penalty, he will not finish on the podium here.
No, we'll keep an eye on that one when it's all done and dusted. Keep an eye too, just on that battle we were talking about before between Coleman and Brown. Brown has succumbed that gap now at 3 seconds in favour of Coleman. He'll come across the line there in 5th position. The battle is still going on further down the field between the WPS cars.
Whoa! A little bit of fun there at the end. Looks like Nathan Brown just a little bit, about him losing the position there at the line right at the death. But, well, Blake Warboys with a sedate lap back to the pits. A fantastic performance from him as we see what happened to Nitschke. Off at the bus stop, and then contact on the exit here. Oh yeah, just a little bit of contact for the right front, and then heavy into the safer barrier.
That could have been a 3-car huge pile up in it. Wow, that was really close.
Yeah, absolutely. Well then, not much more to say about Blake Warboys' performance, showing that that's why he's the reigning champion of this series, Daniel.
Yeah, it was another clinical drive from him. First off with the pit stop, Truition come in, full set of tyres, and just kept his nose clean the whole way through the race, working his way back through the traffic nicely there. And it's kind of what you'd expect to see from a defending series champion. Picked his battles when he needed to throw the car in, and then just managed and extended that gap throughout the course of it. So he's got a nice clean sheet to start the season off, 2 from 2, and we'll be looking forward to seeing whether he can make it 3 from 3 next time out.
Yeah, indeed. Oh boy, and what a season we have indeed. Quite the calendar that we've got here. We're actually going to Zandvoort next up on the 23rd of April. Very different track to here at Daytona. Zandvoort is got some high-speed S's, of course, but it's definitely a much more throttle-dependent circuit than Daytona is. Not much time that you spend with the right foot flat to the floor. We'll see what Warboys can do in the Netherlands as we make the hop across the Atlantic from here in virtual Florida. The burnouts are on. And, well, now everyone pulls into the pits and we can go through our official, or unofficial rather, race results. Because Justin McLean, who finished second behind Blake Warboys again, has a penalty. Tim Nicol will complete the podium on the road. He'll move up to second, and Chris Nankerville will finish fourth but move up to third. Coleman, Brown, Nixon, Barella, Blanchard, and Stewart round out the top 10 on the road. Daniel?
And then we got Thierry Massadou in 11th, Alexander coming in 12th position. Josh Drage gets home tonight in 13th ahead of Ryan Robson, Anthony Jewell. Scotty Van Loon there down in 16th tonight ahead of Jack Gray, Jared Burns. Mark Peck coming inside the top 20, a good result for him. And then getting in the 20th spot, we had Daniel Norris.
Going in from there, Matthew McMillan, who's had a pretty busy night. We've spoken about him a lot. John Van Ree, Cameron Edwards, Brenton Nitschke didn't end particularly well for him, but he had a good race. Shane Newens, Ross Thalen, Andrew Hoffman, Bradley Mitchell, James Zeitz, and Michael Freeman in 30th there.
Yeah, finishing also a lap down, Dean Powell with a penalty. Andrew Texera, Tyrone Anderson, Jake Burgess and Michael Gore up to 35th place with Worrell, Woodburn, Seitz, Latta and Cotter all 2 laps down on the leaders, with Craig Spencer unfortunately being a retirement from this one, 16 laps from the end. Now we can go to driver interviews, and of course we'll bring in Blake Warboys first up. It is another win on the board for you, Blake, getting your championship defense off to the best possible start here. Win at Sandown, win at Daytona. The safety car definitely threw things out of whack at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely threw a spanner in the works for everyone. I think a few people didn't realise they could probably get their pits done or realise how much fuel they needed, so it really mixed up the fuel strategy a bit, and put a lot of probably the contenders for the race further in the field than what they probably would have liked. But yeah, good to come away with a nice clean race again. Some good bonus points for 0 incidents as well, so yeah, good round.
Yeah, worked out pretty well for you, especially considering that it's so easy to get off tracks here at Daytona, particularly in the bus stop. How do these cars handle through that section of the track? Because it can be very difficult in any kind of car.
Yeah, when you got a good setup underneath you, definitely you can get the car to flow quite well through there. I struggled a little bit with a bit of front end push through there with how soft the rear bars were set, but able to sort of change my driving style a little bit to compensate for that. But yeah, not too bad. Really enjoy driving the supercars around these style of tracks. It's good fun.
Yeah, indeed. Well, regardless of all of that, we move to Zandvoort next, and second place in the championship for you last season. I'm sorry for my erroneous remarks earlier, everybody. I got to say, it's a very different track is Zandvoort. You're spending a lot more time actually turning the car. So, how do you think you're going to go there?
Should be all right. I don't mind Zandvoort. It's always been good fun, no matter what car I sort of run there. Use the curbs a little bit and that sort of stuff, so it should be good fun. I'll jump in with the team during the week leading up to it, and we'll do a bit of running around. We'll try to get the field more of the WKMP cars towards the front of the field as well. I think we got 3 in the top 10 or 4 in the top 10 today, which is great. So we'll try and get a few more of the guys towards the pointy end, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah, indeed we shall. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Blake. Anyone you'd like to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, huge shout out to Wodonga Carts and Parts, WKMP Sim Sports, Super Cheap Auto, Rebel Sports, BCF, MacPack, Pool Guys Adelaide, Barella Cabinets, Bay 21 Coffee Beans, LGC Images, and Dave 37 Racing. Great to have a bunch of people on the car this year. It's awesome.
Blake Warboys in car 63. Managing to get it done very nicely. Daniel Leet is going to have a chat to Justin McLean, who crossed the line in second.
Hey boys, how are you?
Yeah, thanks, Reece. Justin, great drive, mate. Good battling out there tonight. It was pretty intense. Talk us through your race.
I got a pretty good start, but poor old Tiago, I think it was, lit him up and unfortunately turned and hit me in the door as I was going past him, which caused the pile up. And then yeah, I got had a bit of a mischief in the pit lane, but anyway. But apart from that, it was pretty good. It was fun coming back through a few cars.
Yeah, it looked like you had a good run there. The pace was pretty consistent in your car over the course of the race. Just maybe not quick enough to get it up towards the sharp end of the field with Blake. But the other thing we've got to keep an eye on is we heard from Race Control there may be a potential penalty coming your way. We saw once you got past Tim, it was really sort of head down, bum up, and trying to extend the gap as much as possible.
Yeah, that was it, mate. I was just I didn't actually hear what the penalty was supposed to be, 5 or 15 seconds, I think. But I was just trying to get a 15-second gap to as many people as I could, just in case it sticks. So, but we're going to have a chat about it after this, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. And then next week, we're off to Zandvoort. Very different to what we've seen tonight, both here and in round one. First off, how do you find the circuit? And have you been able to get many laps in with the V8 at all?
I've struggled a little bit actually, mate, because I've been away for work. I managed to get home Friday and just sort of got my my 15 laps in and made sure I was covered there. And I've done a little bit over the weekend, but I don't know if I've ever actually ran the V8 at Zandvoort, so hopefully I'll get a bit of time there.
It'll definitely be a good one to see, and in a couple of weeks' time we'll get out there. But before we let you go and have a chat to Race Control, is there anyone you need to give a shout out and a thanks to?
Yeah, just cheers to everyone at 9-5, all the sponsors. Racecraft, Turn In Apparel, RSW Graphics, and cheers to you guys for putting it on. It's a good broadcast, always watch it after the race, so yeah, just thanks to everyone.
Fantastic. And actually, here we are. We're here, and it's a 5-second penalty from Race Control there for yourself. So I think you may still just have enough of a
you
gap
got away with
to
it.
hang on to second position there, mate. So that's one up from round one.
Yeah, well, that's good at least, but I'll still want to have a yarn about it. I think it's the principle of it, you know. The boys probably hate me because, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit vocal, but it's racing. We're all passionate about it. The cars might be fake, but the competition's real. So, yeah, that's me.
Well, congratulations, mate, and all the best. We'll hopefully see you back on circuit for round 3 at Zandvoort.
Yeah, thanks, boys.
Well, good stuff there from Justin McLean. And finally, Hayden McMahon is standing by with Tim Nicol, who completes our podium.
Hey guys, how you going?
Yeah, doing well. That was a good race for you, Tim. Talk us through how everything sort of played out for yourself there.
Thanks guys. Yeah, this is one, I actually don't mind this track, so I was looking forward to a good run, but I was very lucky to scrape through and not get tangled up in that incident on the start of that lap, but then just went, go get fuel, hold in there, stay clean, and yeah, just tried to stay consistent and stayed out of trouble. So no, it was good.
And we saw a few guys, the winner obviously a good example, going in and getting fuel in the safety car. Do you reckon a lot of the guys missed the trick there?
I think a few did, but I was just having a talking to Justin. I reckon their fuel calculator may not have been working well, because obviously some went back in for more fuel, so it maybe didn't calculate right. I'm not sure, but there's definitely had plenty of fuel based on good lap calculations. But yeah, it's very easy also to get off track, so that's maybe the other potential option or issue they may have faced.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to Zandvoort next up in the series. Have you driven the supercar there too much yet, Tim?
Yeah, a few times. Don't mind it, but we'll see how we go. Always comes with a fixed setup, comes down to how well you gel with that set. So, no, I look forward to it. These guys are good to race with, so yeah, it'll be good.
Awesome. And just before we let you go, anybody you need to thank or anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, just a big shout out to the boys at Quantum Pecky Performance Racing. Thanks, guys. Scotty Van Loon. Yeah, I know you're a bit sad that I muscled my way through, but you know, when you got to get on with it, you got to get on with it, buddy. And yeah, just the boys in the team and our sponsors, Quantum Peckies, West Oz Roos, and a few of the other boys. And thanks, and also the wife let me do it.
That one is very important to thank there. Good work getting that one out there, Tim. And I wish you all the best for our next round and for the championship as well.
Too easy. Thanks, guys. Love it.
Well, that brings to an end our broadcast here on SimSpeed TV of the Shannons NTE series, at least for round 2. We've got 4 more rounds coming up, calendar of which we can see right here, 23rd of April. So we've got a good 3 weeks break before we go racing in the Netherlands here at Circuit Park Zandvoort. Very challenging circuit indeed, of course, most famous for hosting the Dutch Grand Prix up until the mid-1980s. A very different circuit now to what it was back then, but you'll be able to catch that at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern. And don't forget, we are switching away from daylight savings in about a week's time, so make sure to adjust your clocks accordingly if you are living in Queensland or WA. 6:30 p.m. Northern Territory time as well. Thanks very much, everybody, for watching. We want to give a huge thanks once again to all of our series partners and, of course, Shannons for the continuing title sponsorship of this series. Really awesome to have you guys on board with us. I'm Reese Gardner. With me was Daniel Leet and Hayden McMahon, with Jake Kennedy behind the scenes, bringing you these pictures across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. From all of us here at SimSpeed TV, we say bye for now, and we'll see you next time.